Hello and welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about something very interesting. So we're going to expand upon our main website or our base website, and we're going to create some more interesting stuff. All right. So for example, let's say we want to write an article just like this one, right? So if I want to write an article like this, I need a big heading. I need a couple of paragraphs. I need a smaller heading perhaps, and I need some space between my paragraphs as well, right? So I need headings, smaller headings, paragraphs, space between my paragraphs. How do I do that? Let's just see. All right, let's just start building our website and then we'll try to figure out how to do that. So obviously, first thing we have to do is we have to create a HTML tag because that is the main tag that we have. Inside the HTML tag, we obviously have a head tag. Don't forget the head. And after that, we have a body tag. All right. Now, one more thing which I want to clarify is it doesn't matter if you remove your head tag as well. The website is still going to work fine. But it is basically common practice to have head tag as well as body tag, because later when you're creating bigger websites, head tag is also going to matter a lot, right? And for this point in time, it's going to hold only the title. But as we go further down the multiple lectures that we have, we're going to use the head tag for a lot more purposes. For example, we can also use it for the icon that we have inside the website, which also I'm going to show it in the next upcoming classes. All right. So the title is my favorite article or my article, for example. All right, so we have an article. So let's start writing the article, right? Inside the body, we're going to write the article. We can just say breaking news. Vamshi is teaching web development. All right, so breaking news, Vamshi is teaching web development. This is the main title of our website. Now I'm going to save it. And I'm going to go inside the browser and I'm going to reload it. The file which we open up, so now even though we want it as a heading, it still appears small, right? All right, so we'll just keep it as it is, and if I just leave a bit of space, and how is it possible that he is creating the best HTML and CSS course on the planet? How am I doing that? If I save it and if I go back and if I refresh, another small disturbance or something that we did not expect, even though we left a lot of space between these two lines are still coming up in the same line. All right, why is that? Okay, we'll tackle the issues one by one. Firstly, we need a heading. All right, so we'll tackle that issue first. The way you can use a heading is by using another tag, which is the heading tags. All right, you can do that by saying h1, and inside that we can say breaking news. All right, if I save and if I go back, if I reload, there is our heading. All right, so what is h1? H1 basically means it's the heading 1. Consider 1 as a level. So there are 6 different levels of headings that we have. Let's just say h2. H2 is breaking news. If I save and if I go back, you see the heading level is a bit smaller, right? The level 1 is the biggest heading possible. Level 2 is a bit smaller. 3 is going to be even more smaller up until 6. All right, we have 6 different levels of heading tags. We'll quickly implement all the different levels. This is h3, this is h4, this is h5, this is h6. Save and if I go back and if I refresh, there are our multiple headings. All right. Now you see that the heading 6 is almost less than normal text, right? Yeah. So there are 6 different levels of headings that you can use throughout your website to kind of create these funky titles or smaller titles or anything while you're writing your articles, or if you want to distinguish one section of your website to another section, anything in general, you can use the heading tags. All right. Now we want paragraphs, right? So generally you can actually write paragraphs just like this. I'm also going to show you what I did there. So what I basically did is there is something called as lorem, L-O-R-E-M, and after lorem, if you say 25 or 30 or any number and hit on tab, it's going to create a jargon or basically a garbage words up until that number, right? So we just did lorem 25, right? So it created 25 garbage words. If I save and if I go back and if I refresh, upon first glance, it looks like normal text, but if you read it, it doesn't make any sense, right? So that's the purpose of lorem. It's basically used for kind of like, a showcase text. Whenever people are creating websites or whenever you're creating a website for your client and you want to showcase how it's going to look like with some text, you can basically do this, right? It looks like original text upon a glance, but only reveals itself when you focus on it specifically. All right. Now, so before doing this, so what we usually do is, in terms of writing HTML, we wrap paragraphs in terms of a paragraph tag, right? So for paragraph also we have a tag. So the paragraph tag is something like this. It's just P. Once again, all these tags have an opening and a closing. So make sure you're closing a tag, right? It doesn't matter what tag it is. If it has a closing tag, make sure you're always mentioning it. All right, inside the paragraph, I'm going to say lorem 50 and I'm going to save. And if I go back and if I refresh, there is our lorem 50. So this has 50 different words in it, right? So now, if I want to have a small break, if I want to have a small distance between my first paragraph and my second paragraph, which is going to be lorem 100, these two paragraphs. Now I have already a space, but if I want to have another space, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say BR. Now, this is our first tag which doesn't have a closing tag. You know what? Just to kind of like demonstrate the use of this, I'm going to remove everything. I'm going to say lorem 50 and lorem 100. All right. So if I save and if I go back and if I refresh, now we have two different paragraphs, but we don't have a space between them, right? The space we can include by saying a BR tag. BR basically means a break, right? So when you have this tag, and you refresh it, you can see that the paragraph ends here at explicable, right? After the question mark, the paragraph tag ends there, and the next paragraph comes down to another line. If I remove this BR, it's going to continue right from this point, right? Explicable. After that, that's the second paragraph. All right. So we can also add multiple BR tags like this. Once again, remember the break tag doesn't have a ending because we're not adding anything between the two tags. If you remember our example, we had an example of our book, right? So a tag is going to have an ending if it contains something in between, right? The heading tag contains a heading text. The paragraph tag contains a huge amount of paragraph. But the break tag is just a break tag. We are not going to write anything in between the break, right? It's just a tag which represents, it says to the website that, just leave a small space or go to the next line. That's the functionality of the break tag. And if I use another break tag, it's going to leave an empty line, right? So that's the reason we are not going to have an ending tag for the break tag. So you can add any number of break tags that you want, and it's going to keep adding another new line to the website, right? Instead, what we can also do is we can remove all of this and we can add the paragraph tag like we talked about earlier. So we can just say lorem 25 is one paragraph, and I'm going to say, lorem 100 is the second paragraph. And if I refresh it, see, now the break tag is applied automatically, or the spacing in between is applied automatically, because HTML now knows that these are two different paragraphs, right? Earlier in that case, when we just had a huge block of text, it did not work because HTML did not know that these are two different paragraphs, or these are two separate paragraphs. So what we can do is we can add two different paragraph tags to kind of like let HTML know that these are two separate paragraphs. All right. So that's it for this class. In the next class, we're going to look at something even more cooler. So I'll see you in the next one. All right. So one question you might have is, inside the previous class, we have this huge amount of white space, right? So after the first paragraph and the second paragraph, we have like two different lines, or if I even have like 7 to 8 different lines. If I save and if I go back, if I refresh it, it's just still going to show me one line. It's not a problem with HTML, or it's not a problem with your website. HTML is basically designed like that, and on purpose. The reason is HTML is basically white space insensitive. What it basically means is that whatever the white space that you add in between elements or in between your tags, that space is entirely going to be rendered as one small line or one small space, one small, the space part, one small space character, right? So it doesn't matter how many lines between how many paragraphs that you add or how many lines between how many elements that you add. At the end of the day, HTML is going to ignore all that white space and it's just going to render the elements. Instead, if you want space, like we discussed in the previous lecture, you can always add the break tag. All right. If we add multiple break tags, HTML is going to understand that, this is where the person or the developer wants this particular amount of space to be included. So I'm going to do that. All right. So that was something I quickly wanted to include because I thought a lot of you might have a question that, even though we have this huge amount of spaces, HTML is not showing that. Why is that? All right. The reason is this. HTML is basically white space insensitive. Remember this word. If possible, just note it down as well. All right. So practice a couple of times with the heading tags, paragraphs, break tags, whatever we learned with today. Try experimenting with multiple heading tags. Try creating a small article for yourself just like this one. Try to structure your article based on different types of headings, and I'll see you in the next one.